Hi everyone, it's Heather with Rose Hill Paper Cottage, and this is my design team project for Ruby and Pearl XO. And today I'm just sharing a really simple technique, a patchwork technique. But first I wanted to talk about a couple different things. So you can print out, to do patchwork, you can print out on paper. It's totally fine. You don't need this particular thing that I'm going to show you here. But I think this is fun, and this just adds a little bit of a different texture. So I had this light sewable heat and bond at home, and I've been wanting to print out on fabric for a really long time, but I keep forgetting to get the sheets that are, for your printer. And so I was like, well, maybe I can just do it myself. So I took the heat and bond and I ironed it onto this plain white sheet and, cut it all down to size, the 8.5 by 11, put it through the printer, and voila, here we go. So I think this turned out really, really cute. I love kind of like the fuzzy nature, of the sheet. And then you can just peel that off and, adhere it down with an iron. All the instructions are on the heat and bond. But this just gives a different look as opposed to just using paper. Now, this is not going to be, like water resistant or anything like that. But you can go online and there's all kinds of different ways to do that if that's important to you. But for what I'm using it for today, it's not important. So I printed out both on paper and on, fabric, just because, I liked both looks. I thought they were both fun. So that one's on fabric, and so is this one. And then the other two, which you can see are obviously a lot brighter, they are on paper. So really, really pretty patterns. I love all these different, wallpapers. These are newer releases from Heather. And then this here is the Petit paper strips, and these are newer as well. And I printed those on fabric. But then you just end up with this cute like patchwork. Now you can use any kind of like fabric that you want to, but I just loved, mixing up the different florals. And you can see they're all paper except for that one right there. That one is the one that I actually had printed on fabric, and they all look adorable together. So what you basically need is a piece of fabric, and I am using denim. I love the mixture of denim and florals, but any kind of fabric that you have, especially if you want to create like a certain color palette or something like that, definitely, try out some other fabrics to match and, pull wallpapers. She has a ton of wallpapers, pull out different, collections. There are individual images. And then there are ones where you can print them, all 4 of the images in the kit, 4 to a page. And so I basically did that, and then I minimized them so that I printed, several to a page. And then I just kind of like cut them to the sizes that I wanted. And I just kind of like laid them all out. And I'll kind of move these all around, till I get kind of like the pattern that I wanted. But what happened here was that this idea just popped into my head of this picture that I had seen. When Heather released all these different, wallpapers at one time recently, it just kind of reminded me of that image that I had seen of these torn up jeans where they had taken a floral fabric and they had, patched it underneath, so it was all kind of like tattered and everything like that. And then they had done some embroidery. So that would be beautiful too, to add as another additional element was, to add some embroidery to it. I didn't do that here, but it would be really, really cute. Especially if you were going to do this like on a journal cover or something. I think that would be, really, really pretty. So I'm just kind of like laying everything out and how it could kind of like look. And you could even take like a larger image if you wanted to. I mean, they don't have to be small. You could take, whatever you want. You could just do one, it just depends on your overall look. And we'll kind of like look at that in a little bit, when I do it on paper. So I'm just kind of, looking at some other different ideas. Now that I've kind of laid them all down of like what I really kind of, like. And still at this point, I don't exactly know what I'm going to use it for, but I think I'm going to use it as like a side pocket, because of its length. But you could make a pocket any size that you want to, it doesn't have to be a long, narrow pocket. You can, really do, whatever you want to do. The really cool thing about this is, although I do patchwork a lot of times and I just do it on the top of fabric and, I layer and I do all that sort of stuff, this just creates a whole other, look, a whole other, aesthetic to the piece, different texture. I just think it looks really cool. So what I kind of do is I guess a lot here. So you could do this a couple different ways. If you already kind of know what you're going to do, you could actually take a piece of, cardstock or whatever, and, iron on or glue on your pieces to that if you kind of know where they're going to go, and then lay your fabric over the top and snip it. So since at the time when I did this, I didn't know how I was going to use it, I snipped the fabric and then I kind of just lay out my images, and that's going to help me when I sew. And I'll, widen the gaps a little bit more, but this is just kind of helping me with like placement. So I just kind of do a little bit of a snip in there, and I get my, fabric laid inside there. And then, when I go to sew it, I can know that I need to sew, basically kind of in the general area. So you'll see I mess up though too. And my look that I'm going for, so, you could do this a couple different ways. You could just, stitch around one time and be all neat and things like that. Me, nope. I'm going to be all messy. And I'm going to stitch around like a couple times each one of them. I just like the look of it, which you saw on that other one that I showed, the finished one. And you could use, a thread that matches your project. I have like this variegated, blue thread that's like, it really matches denim and it would blend in, which I think I show at the very end. On the pocket, I think that's the thread that I used. So it kind of blends in, you don't see it, but I'll use actually a navy blue on this, and you will see it because I wanted it to be seen. So I'm just snipping out just a little bit more. And I'll even, cut more, but this is really just kind of, so kind of what you're doing when you're putting it into the sewing machines, because, things shift. And I could have kind of tacked it down with glue and everything, but I'm impatient and I just wanted to get that stitched in place. And I'll cut out a lot of this sewing because, you really can't see what I'm doing, and it's, just extra time that doesn't need to be there. So I really am not stitching them that fast. I just cut out a lot of that part. So what I do is I cut around the patch. I feel like it feels more natural when you kind of cut around where your threads are, so that things aren't like bulky, I guess, on the back of the project. And then if you happen to sew on paper, you don't have to do this step right here, but I'm just peeling off that backing, so that when I go to, heat this, that paper won't, obviously, prevent that from happening. If you just glue it, because you don't have to heat it just because it's on a heat fabric. If you go to glue it, you can just, put glue all over the back of it. But I actually did, I used the tip of my iron and I, ran it across the little patch area, but I glued everything else. So I glued it, let it dry, and then I went back with the iron and, on the patches that I used that were on that fabric. So here I'm lining up the next one. And I think a lot of times, like as I went, it just helped me see like what the overall design, would look like. If you're a visual learner, that's going to be beneficial for you. But honestly, I don't think you can go wrong. When I look at it now, I don't think, you could really like mess this up. So see where I messed up, I didn't quite get. So I'll just go back again. But it doesn't matter because my stitching's messy. If you wanted it all perfect, then, you may have to take out some threads, but it looks great. Nobody knows. Well, now you all know, but you know what I mean. You can't tell. It looks good. So I just wanted to catch that image in there. The other thing is you could just, you could glue these. You don't actually have to sew them at all. So if you don't have a sewing machine and you don't want to hand stitch them, you could also just glue them down. They'll look just as cool because once you've glued around the image and you've got your fabric there and you've let that dry, when you go back to cut your fabric, then, it'll still be cool. The glue will prevent it from fraying any further, basically. So this just gives a different option of, you know, creating with, you know, the images that she has, that where you can just minimize them, and you could do this with anything. I also think it'd be really cool, like some of her, you know, the photos one, like especially like the beach themed ones that she has. I think those would be so cool to, like, you know, put the image and have it, you know, behind some kind of like breezier like fabric or whatever, gauzier type fabric, you know, and then the image is there, and then, you know, maybe it's like a little side pocket or a, you know, a corner pocket or something like that. I think that would be really cool too. So, I mean, you could do lots of different things. This reminds me of like a pair of, you know, clothing that like you kept, you know, for your memories or something, you know, that, you know, you'd patched at one point, and then you know, you put it into your journal. So it is a lot easier though if you at least snip your fabric before you put your image behind. Then you won't, you know, risk cutting into your image, you know, when you go to, you know, cut out the rest of it to expose it. I think I have two more to stitch. And I think I'll speed up through this part here. I love them. And I love mixing all the different, you know, like wallpapers and stuff. I think it's really fun. The other thing is if you do want to print out on fabric, another thing, and you don't have the heat and bond, the other thing was sticker paper. I had a full sheet of like just a blank, you know, sticker sheet that's meant for the printer. And I just adhered that to the back of my fabric, you know, cut it down to size and ran it through, and then it was totally fine. The only thing with that is that, you know, well, you could leave the sticker paper actually on there and glue that, you know, down, or you could just peel it off, and then you would just have specifically the fabric only. But it would be, you know, kind of like, it'd be flimsy, basically. So I'm trying to get this straight. I think in the end it's a little bit like crooked, but I don't really think it matters too much. I don't know why I was trying to be like so perfect when this is like, you know, a messy, you know, stitching kind of, you know, look. So I'm just using kind of like a tinier, I'm trying to think of what they call these kind of scissors, but it's just not coming to me right now. So, but they're just like tinier ones that I use for snipping, little, you know, man, it's just, it's gone. It's gone, people. Like a detailed scissor or something. So for the most part, you can just tear that, you know, backing off. It's a little tougher, you know, where you've got the threads and stuff. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but I just tried to remove as much as, you know, I could from it. If you choose to do paper, I mean, you don't have to have a, you know, a thick card stock. You could use like a thinner, you know, paper, it doesn't really matter. It just makes things a little bit more fragile as you're doing, like you're working with it and sewing and cutting and all that kind of stuff. So you just have to be a little bit more careful. So when I go to cut the front, like I really kind of cut it because it depends on the fabric that you use. But with denim frays, quite easily. And it doesn't take a lot of denim to kind of get that, look. I mean, I want it frayed, but I want to still be able to see the image as well. So I cut the denim quite close. If you're using another fabric that doesn't, really fray, or the fray doesn't really show, show up very well, then you may want to, not cut it quite so close, to the edge, to the thread. You'll just have to kind of like play around with it and see what works with whatever, fabric that you're using. But I really do love the denim. Denim is really fun to actually, work with. But it does fray easily. Something to prevent it, if you want to prevent it from fraying, is, fray check. Using that will, help to prevent that. So you can see I cut it like really close. And then I'll use my, fingernail to, just kind of, fray it all, rough it all up. It's really, really easy to do, which I show. So it's a simple technique, but it is a little bit time consuming to do it, especially if you choose to do, several of these. But the overall effect, wait till you see. It's so super cute. And honestly, it's just so one of a kind, and it's so different, I think. And the addition of embroidery would have been so pretty as well. But you'll see what I do. I'm going to add a little bit of like lace trim, and stuff to it. So it is still going to look a little bit different than this, but you'll see at the very end if you stick with me here. So I'm just using my fingernail basically. And then, because if you use the fabric, for your patches, and you do like a sheet like I did, it kind of like makes all the fuzzies stick to it. So I just, took like a little piece of, tape, and then, I just pat it down onto the fabric, and it just picks up all the other little like hairs and pieces and stuff. If you use paper, you won't have that issue. So you can really start to see, all the different threads and how like rough it's looking. And it's really looking like, kind of the whole, like, let's make our hole in our jeans more decorative now. I think it's so super cute. How cute would like a denim jacket like this be? I think this would be just so cute. Obviously, you wouldn't want to use paper, and you would want to use fabric that's, water safe, color fast. Whatever they call. I can't even think right now. And I'm having coffee. Not enough, clearly. So I'm showing like how you could just continue. I mean, you could do a whole, you know, big piece, that if you wanted, for whatever you would use it for, you could just like keep going and keep expanding on it. or make something. It's kind of like a gallery wall, you know, if you think about it, this whole patchwork thing, it's like a whole gallery wall. So you could have like a center, you know, focal point. You could go, you know, all around it. I just think that would be really cool, you know, as like a journal cover. So here I'm moving over to the paper and I'm just kind of showing, you know, kind of how I did the patchwork. So you could do several. You could do patchwork all over the paper, but I just did this one and then just kind of peeled the paper around it. So I'm just kind of showing you could even just, you know, do both. You could do patchwork under and patchwork on the top. You could use them as tabs. Just fun little things like that. But I'll just do an individual image and I'll also do it on a second piece. And because my paper is a little bit fragile, I just, you know, glued down another piece on the back side of it. So you'll see as I create one. So I'm just kind of trying to figure out, like, do I want to do multiple? Do I want to do one? And I'll just settle on one again. I like the writing of this. This is an old French book, and I don't know, I really liked it, and I didn't think that it needed a whole bunch, but if I was using like a different page or something, you know, like maybe a music page or something, or like a larger book page, then I would probably do several, but because the book page was just, you know, so small, I just didn't really feel like it needed all that. So I'll end up cutting one of these. And I believe this one's on fabric. Yeah. So because I can, you know, it's not really going to matter where this is kind of positioned, but I can kind of tell, I'm just going to, you know, stitch through it. So because it's paper, I kind of want to be a little bit careful because it's really easy to just, you know, pull it right where the threads are. And I kind of want a little bit, you know, kind of, you know, just kind of like just left over, making it look like, you know, you've peeled back the layers of, you know, wallpaper on a wall, and then this is what you have. So I think this is a really cool look too. You know, it looks neat. Look how cute that is. And that was so quick to do. A lot quicker than fabric because, you know, paper tears so easily. So I'm just peeling off that back piece. And I don't actually use this adhesive. You know, I won't iron this or anything like that. I'll just glue it all down to another piece of the like book page. And I think I didn't catch completely the design there. But I think it's, you know, since I'm gluing it, it's not going to matter. You know, I'm gluing something else to the back of it. So I'm just cutting off that little bit of excess. So I'm just using another page of that same book and just using a little bit of Beacon's glue here, and I'm just going to glue it down. I just love it. I think it turned out really, really cute. So see, that would be really cute just as a page, you know, in a journal, as a journal page, basically. I'd probably have to reinforce the spine on this particular book page, but you know, you get the whole, you know, idea, you know, behind it. It's like a window, you know, like you're looking into somebody's house and they've got like this big vase full of beautiful flowers. It's kind of like that. So really, really super cute. I just love how they both turned out. And then now I'll show you, you know, how I ended up using that piece in a journal, the denim one. And here it is here. So I basically just, you know, reinforced it with like a piece of, you know, cardstock. You know, I've added some, you know, lace trim to it, and then I stitched it all around, you know, for the back of this, you know, journal. So I'm just showing I used like an old like file folder. I might have actually even used like a piece of packaging or something like that. You know, that's great for like reinforcing stuff to make, you know, pockets. But I just love how it turned out. I think it's so adorable. Like, look how cute that is. That's so cute. And, you know, so special for this special journal that I'm creating for someone. So I love how it turned out. So I hope you enjoyed this project. I hope you'll, you know, you'll give it a go and you'll try this. If you have any questions, you know, ask me below. I will try to find all of the different kits that I used for the florals. And I'll, you know, put them all below, everything that I used. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.